I was reading the internet this morning and they were talking about the big success of Yellowstone. It's a Western set in modern times. Because of that success, they're thinking about, well, actually, they've released a show called 1883 about the Wild West in old days. They were even talking about doing a Yellowstone network, which is, I guess, the Westerns have become cool again. The programmers get into this. I also read, I think they're going to do like a history of programming, beginning with the Old West. There are a lot of Old West tie-ins with programming. One of the first conflicts will be choosing byte order. I think they're going to call that Cowboy versus Indians. Hey, that's a long setup for a joke, wasn't it, huh? Hey, I'm Daniel Martin. Good to see you. It's Nerd Roundup. Another week is here. I have no idea who's going to join us today. If you haven't been to Nerd Roundup before, you haven't missed a damn thing in your life. But we're happy you're here today. Nerd Roundup is a weekly thing where we get together and talk about what's been going on in the world of nerds, what we've been discussing. No topic is really off the table. I believe that a team that can relax and joke around with one another is a team that can do damn near anything. And I cannot teach this in a class, but I can show you how it's done. So I try to gather as many diverse friends as possible together every week. And we talk about the articles that I just flagged during the week. The rules are there are no rules. So I have nobody here today. Isn't that weird? Greg Young came by about 3 hours ago in the Discord room, had this wonderful idea for something we're going to do during Nerd Roundup. Got me very excited. I spent about an hour developing all this stuff. And then he disappeared. So I'm going to kill Greg Young. I'm very sorry about that, but I think he's deserved it by now. It's just James Gritting messaged earlier this morning. He said, hey, you still have a Nerd Roundup at 3 o'clock today? I went, freaking yes. Awesome. He said, I can't make it. It's like the guy, hey, are you the redhead person I spoke to? Well, I don't remember you. Funny stuff. I also spent some time with James this morning, helping him out with his, very little amount of time. He's doing a Docker install on AWS, EC2, and trying to get his Engine X server up and running. A lot of buzzwords there. He figured it out on his own, but I was standing by during lunch to help him out. Okay, so links this week, and if anybody shows up, maybe we'll go back to Greg's thing, because I have material I created for that, and if nobody shows up, well, heck with them. This is an open room, and people were expected to work, and I don't really expect anybody to come by. I'm just happy when people do. All right. Oh, first thing I wanted to show you guys was the other thing I did this past week. If you're interested in making your own music video, I wrote an article, Make Your Own Music Montage in Bash. After we did Nerd Roundup last week, I decided to take pictures from last year and make a music montage. And that was such a hoot that I thought, hey, why don't I just teach you guys how to do it on your own? And so there's a bash script here to make your own music montages. And it's got a bunch of explanations. It's not very hard. I think there's probably maybe less than 10 lines of actual bash code. Most of it's comments. It's interesting, when I finished this, I thought about going back and redoing this in a different language. So I was thinking F#. If you don't know it, you can actually write F# scripts right into your Linux or Ubuntu install. I thought, hey, I'll just do this as an F# script, run from the command line. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, dag, that's really going to be a lot harder using F# or C# or anything else besides bash. Bash kind of does the job very well in a very succinct manner. Now, having said that, gosh, people hate doing bash code. And if you ever program in bash, you should always, always, always have some sort of code budget. So my budget was about 20 lines of code for this. If I had gone over 20 lines of code, it would be a flag to me that I was making things too complex. I was in over my head, or I was just like writing code that was going to be a nightmare to maintain. None of that happened. It all kind of came out. It was very cool. Now, what have I been doing this past week? Still playing a lot of Factorio. My wife is getting better. I have been her man Friday for a while. As she begins to be able to type, get on the computer, she drove a little the past few days. I get more and more time. I just kind of now start sort of leaving Factorio running in the background. I'm hoping to get back to some coding, some cool essay work. I've got a bunch of stuff I want to get on, but I can't do right now. First article, Ask a Manager blog. The new hire who showed up is not the same person we interviewed. And if that isn't crazy enough. And there's a whole story what happened. Basically, the closer they came to figuring out that this was not the person, they eventually just quit. And they were like, wow, that was weird. Yeah, the guy interviewed, he was wonderful, eloquent, knew all the answers to everything. And then when he showed up, he didn't look like he did on the video interview. He didn't seem to know very much. Yeah, I wonder how long you could run with that. That sounds like a pretty wild deal. And the really, really, really crazy part of this, it's not unique. I think I've experienced it a couple times myself. We never really found out. But if you follow the Hacker News discussion here, yeah, this is like several stories about the same thing happening to folks. Dag. It amazes me when we do this great income disparity that we have between coders and tech folks in the U.S. and literally billions of people around the world. When you get that gradient to be so steep, you're going to have thousands and thousands of people who are just doing anything they can to pick up just pennies. So this guy worked for a week. Heck, I mean that could be the amount of money people make for a year. So there's a heck of good incentive for these folks. It's incredible. It reminds me of the story we did a few months back where the guy automated his job because it was all remote and then took another job. And so his first job, he was just completely running automatic scripts. His second job, he was trying to script that up so he could go to a third job. Fun stuff. That guy, I didn't know if that was like real or just making that up or not. This is obviously real. The next story is a tweet. Oh my God, yeah. So, I don't know what it is about, maybe my Twitter feed has become infected with this. I don't know. It's a tweet about deconstruction in C#. You may ask, is that a destructor? No, it is deconstruction. So, of course, quick review. Objects have constructors. They have when they come into existence. They have destructors when they leave. Many objects have a finalize, which is cleaning up resources, and some objects have a init, which is preparing the object for work. But constructor makes it, destructor gets rid of it. Basically, deconstruction, if you've ever done copy constructors in C++, it's a very similar idea. Basically, the way this came about was, I'm pretty sure that F# folks are doing tuples because functional folks loved them some tuples. And we were passing tuples around, doing cool tuple stuff. And I think the C# guys were like, wow, well, we would like to do some tuple stuff too. And so I think 2 versions ago, they introduced tuple in the syntax that looked like C# had thrown up all over the compiler. And it got a little better the last time around. But the basic problem is that C# is a typed language. It's not strictly typed. It's gotten loosely typed as it went along, but it is a typed language. So you're really encouraged to think in terms of what the hell do I have here? Functional programmers think in that term as well, but functional programmers usually scope out everything that I don't care about right now, because if you didn't, you would go crazy. I told people when I first learned functional programming that functional code was like carrying the linker around in my head, and it was, because I was trying to keep track of all the damn symbols in the entire code. One of the big skills you learn as a functional programmer is just to focus on specific types for the problem you're solving, and just though all the rest you don't really care. Plain text is fine. C# has sort of a mixed metaphor here, and so they were using tuples, and they were like, okay, I got a tuple, but I want to turn it into like first name, last name, because it's a tuple of strings, and it's first name, last name. So F# had this really cool thing where you could just go let first name, comma, last name equal blah, and it would assign the variables to the tuple, and Bob's your uncle, you're off and running. And so I think the C# guys really wanted that. So what they've created somewhere in their deep dark laboratory, I can picture lightning flashing, wah, it's alive. They created this way of taking any type and throwing it at sort of a group of other types and having something good come out. So I could go like, I could have a 7-part tuple, first name, last name, address, blah, blah, blah. And I could throw it at, name, the name a deconstruction, and it would just come out with first name, last name. If this is sounding like a getter method on an object, well, you're not alone. It is a getter method, but the idea is that it completely transforms the the one type into the other. Like I said, this is like a copy constructor, C++. The issue here is that it is like a copy constructor C++, and I don't think the folks who are using it actually understand what the hell that means, or sort of the limitations and dangers that come with that. The selling point is that it makes code cleaner. I think it probably does in F#. I think it may in C#. But the drawback is that it looks better, but it's actually more complicated, which is the befuddlement of object programmers everywhere. So just simply because you can make it look better doesn't mean it is better. Yeah, I wish it did, but it didn't. C immutable functions and code. So yeah, so this is Deconstruction, and I looked at this and I thought, I have no idea. This cannot be as freaking dumb as I thought it would be. So I looked up, found a blog entry. This is also in the links for the blog. And here this guy pretty much is showing off the same thing. And get a tuple. And of course you've got the interpolation, which is also really cool. And it's also sort of, C# is kind of went, we're going to be Java. And then they're going to go, oh, we want to be Bash. No, we have F#. And they're somewhere, I won't say they're in the ditch. I think they've passed the ditch. They're off in the weeds somewhere. I am not a fan. My son said it's great, and God bless him. I'm sure that parts of it are awesome. I think C# has quickly reached the C++ point, and by that I mean that you're going to have a really tight control over what you're going to do and not going to do in your source code, or you're going to confuse yourself in your maintenance programs. So yeah, I'm not really opposed to having a language that does everything, but the more your language does, the more you're going to have coding standards and reviews. Next article, nearly 1,000 mysterious strands revealed in Milky Way's center. And this is just amazing. It's a shame Bob couldn't come on today. What they've done is combine radio astronomy with, I think, ultraviolet and visible astronomy to take what's normally a picture of the center of our galaxy, and like you put the things together, you end up with like a bunch of strands. They talk about them being electric storms. Check this thing out. This is just, wow, great, man, huh? And then here's the article. You're welcome to read that. And we have a bunch of various pictures of this girl. This nice lady shows how Judy Schmidt. She calls herself Space Geck. She shows how the pictures are put together. This is just some amazing photography, amazing synthetic stuff. Cool stuff. So if you're interested in astrophotography or really cool stuff you haven't seen before from space, this would be the thing to check out this week. This next one, I am quite bummed, again, that Greg didn't come, because I was telling him that, dude, this is where we need you to come in here. This is a wonderful article, as I understand it, about things we finally know about network queues. And so if you've done queuing, which Greg, of course, CQRS, you know about back pressure, you know about all, queues are empty, back pressure is implicit, drop packets should be intentional. A lot of cool stuff. Yeah, of course, tail drop is the worst drop. If you're doing queuing, I highly recommend coming by and reading this article. Quite frankly, I didn't spend a lot of time on it because I thought Greg was going to expound on its goodness or badness, but there is a wonderful bunch of stuff here. As I followed the comments on Hacker News, everybody agreed that it was cool. So this I'm going to come back. I actually saved this to my note file to come back for next time I do a lot of queuing. Next we have, it's time to preserve our right to transact privately. This is an editorial op-ed in Hill online magazine, and it's written by, I think, a Republican congressman, which, it's nothing to do with, I think, partisan politics. He's basically making the point, which would have been a common sense point even 10 years ago, I hope it still is. We have a right to transact amongst ourselves without that being part of the public record. We always have. And we're running across these things that we've always done throughout written history. And nobody ever thought about writing down, well, hey, you have a right to do this because, well, why? Why would we? It's stupid. It reminds me of the constitutional debate, the Bill of Rights. We came together with the Constitution because we had to pay war debt, and we were broke. And somebody said, what are you going to not have the government do? Because if we don't make a list of stuff the government's not going to do, they're going to do every damn thing. They're going to take over every part of our lives. And these folks, these are the Anti-Federalists, they were laughed off the stage. And they said, nah, come on. Why would you think we would do it? You're just making up these paranoid conspiracy theories. And the Anti-Federalists said, make us a list. You promise us that you're not going to mess around with these things. And that's how the United States got the Bill of Rights, which were 10 things we promised not to do. And you can go down each of these today and see where the Anti-Federalists were right all along. But wait, there's more. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't think even of writing down, because it would have seemed like magic 200 years ago. How could the government ever know every little thing you transacted? Well, as it turned out, we invented that, and so they can technically do that. And if you've been following cryptocurrency, this really is where we're headed. Cryptocurrency is not an anonymous money transaction system. I think some of them may be, but by and large, 99% of cryptocurrency is a way for the government to tell every little penny that you own and to tax you on that. And I have no problem paying taxes for things that you owe. But, if I sell my horse for $20, that's none of the damn government's business. That's a thing for me to tell the government later. I need no other third party. That the right to transact privately isn't really related even to the government. It's related to anybody. If you and I decide to sell you something for $20, nobody should come between us, because we have an agreement that's free adults to make a transaction. Yeah, it's just totally fucked up. And I'm glad that this guy wrote this, and I hope this doesn't get bogged down in partisan politics, because it doesn't. It's too important to do that. Next up, what if quantum computing is a bust? This is really weird that I saw this, because last week we were talking about quantum, the new quantum programming language MIT was coming out with. I think it was called Mr. Quest or something. And the guy who did it said, well, even if quantum computing isn't as good as they say it's going to be, this language is still cool. And what I said when I read that was, wow, this is the first time I'm starting to see scientists sort of back away from all quantum is all magical. And then, dang, 2 days later, here's what if quantum computing is a bust? I didn't look at the credentials of these guys. They call for there may be a quantum winter. It's like a nuclear winter, only with quantums. I just love the way everything's quantum now. Who these guys are? Homeland Security, U.S. government. I don't think I'm at the point yet where I think there's a serious problem. But if it's like artificial intelligence, yeah, it's probably been oversold quite a bit. So it would not surprise me if there's a big drop between sort of the peak of, oh, wow, I can do everything, to the trough of, oh my God, this is going to be a lot of work. If that happens, it would be par for the course. It's happening for everything else. But the quantum winter may be coming. No longer will we be in the quantum spring or the quantum fall, but the quantum winter, where the quantum snow will come down. We build little quantum snowmen and send them to our friends via quantum mail. This next article sort of borders on political. I didn't really mean for it to be political, but I thought it was fascinating in the way that the internet decouples sort of the way we reason about things from what the thing is itself. This past week, there was a brouhaha, maybe a kerfluffle, could be even an incident on Spotify, where Neil Young said, hey, I love being the guy who breaks all the rules as long as I can make money on it, but if somebody else is breaking the rules, not so much. And I will pull my albums if Joe Rogan stays on Spotify. It was kind of unfortunate for Spotify. They just signed a contract for $100 million for Joe Rogan. The business numbers show that Rogan, has, I think, 5 to 10 million viewers for every, 5 to 10 million viewers for every thing he does. I see Greg. And, of course, Neil Young probably continues to sell thousands of albums, but not so much. Yeah. So I'm happy with Spotify doing whatever they want to. I'm happy with Neil Young having his right to do that. And I have listened to Joe Rogan, 6, 12 times. I was curious what the whole thing was about. And as it turns out, Rogan's just, we would say, this generation's Larry King. I don't think he's overtly political. He's probably an autodidact. He does seem to sort of swerve into whoever he's latest talked to in the latest, because he studies them, and if he's talking to a guy who likes Bigfoot, he's more likely to sound like he likes Bigfoot. That's just part of being an autodidact, I think. But I have yet to see any. He endorsed Bernie Sanders. If anything, he seems more like a left of center person. But he's making a bunch of money. Because he's making a bunch of money, my opinion, and I may be wrong, is that there are people who are not making that much money who have the monkey poop firmly in hand, ready to throw it at Rogan. And so, anyway, Neil Young's going to pull his stuff off. Spotify dropped $70 per share. Spotify CEO said, we're sorry, we'll miss you, Neil. We're going to have new standards. So I guess if Joe Rogan comes on, we're going to announce ahead of time for some people, this next podcast is bullshit or something like that, and then they'll show it. I think it's very nice that Spotify would get to choose who they decide is bullshit or not. Like I said, this was not meant to be political. I think the fascinating part here is not the cancel culture necessarily, is that I have been saying for 5 or 10 years, there is a lot of money in being negative online. And I don't think people really realize that. What we seem to do is morally identify who's right or wrong. We seem to get upset about who's right or wrong. We make judgments over who should be punished or rewarded. And we all do that. That's not unique to anybody or any group of people. But once we do that, we sort of turn off the brain about looking at any other sort of things that are happening. Give you a good example, I've noticed a lot of Amazon book reviews are really, really negative, and I think they're really, really negative because it's easy to trash your competitor, much easier than it is to actually come up with a good review for your own stuff. Politicians have known this for hundreds of years. People believe negative stuff about the other guy a lot quicker than they'll believe positive stuff about you. And there's become an industry. Reviews online first. Now we're doing the cancel culture thing. This industry has been on for 10 or 20 years on the internet. It's becoming quite prevalent now. And the gimmick is to trash people. I want to point out that had you shorted Spotify in late December, you could have made hundreds of millions of dollars. So one could come up with a scenario, and I'm not trying to disparage Neil Young by any means. As far as I know, he's an honest, good person who's doing this out of his own personal conviction, and God bless him. But we have to speculate what could be possible with other people. You could have come up end of December and said, hey, dudes, here are 4 or 5 people. You guys, if you can trash somehow Spotify, price will drop by 2/3. We'll short it. We'll make $300 million, and we'll give you 10 or 20 yourself. If I were an artist and I were making only $10,000, $20,000 a month out of royalties or whatever, it'd be very, very difficult to turn down that kind of money. And so while I'm by no means trying to impugn on the motives of these people who have gone after Joe Rogan, and you want to kick them off, I really don't care. It's their own business. I am quite interested in the fact that the morals, emotional part sort of turns off the logic part, and there's a ton of money moving around behind the scenes. And that is non-trivial. I would really hate to see this come out in another 5 or 10 years that we made a lot of billionaires just on emotionally manipulating people. That would make me sad. The follow-up to that is a article from this last one was from the left, and then I followed up with one from the right, and he's making the reverse case that people on the left get trashed and then the people on the right. So he's saying, hey, what we're doing is we're purposely making these things that are these big fights so that we can all pile on and either get more listeners or more money or whatever, and it's become its own industry. That he is correct here, I believe so, and it's a sad thing. So if you want to read that, these two together, make it kind of nice. Yeah, that's screwed up. Yeah, I don't know how to get out of this. It's part of the way people reason about things. It had, like I said, politicians have known it for hundreds of years. Thomas Jefferson had a newspaper editor, publisher in Richmond. He paid under the table to trash John Adams when he ran against him for president. So yeah, this nothing new at all. Yeah, ma, where's my pa? Gone off to Washington. Ha ha ha. That was Tyler, I think, accused of having illegitimate child. The thing is that we've automated it and made it so that we can do it with millions of people instantaneously, and that's just sort of made a bad situation worse. Greg's here. I don't know if he's going to drop by or not. Greg. Toyota heading to moon with cruiser, robotic arms, and dreams. This is one in probably a dozen, 2 dozen articles I've seen over the last few decades about Company X is building something for space travel. But they're fun little articles. Look at this, is like a cool little Toyota. Can't you see yourself with like a rifle rack in the back and maybe some mud flaps on this thing with like a picture of a boy or girl, whatever your preference is, just kind of tooling around the moon? I think this would be freaking awesome. Yeah, go Toyota. I wonder if you'll be like a competitors from Chevrolet and Ford and Tesla. That would be, wow, so like would be racing. Racing would be, motocross would be super freaking cool on the moon because you could jump like 150, 200 feet. Wow. I'd pay to see that. That'd be fun. Next article or two is back to the military. I hate to keep hitting on the military, but I find technical articles and technology articles about the military endlessly fascinating because you have big systems of people trying to do technical stuff. You have results that usually result in people dying or not. So it's the stakes are very high. They're large systems of people. And there's like so much money involved that you wonder, are they far, far ahead of us, or are they just sort of spending money for nothing? Cyber attacks have targeted Belarus's rail network to slow the flood of Russian forces. Current events have been that Putin has moved most of his armed forces that's mobile next to Ukraine. The Ukrainians have quite obviously went apeshit over this. Putin says, hey, I'm just moving my armed forces around. I believe that to be true. I don't know. Hey, Greg. Dude. Came up. But however it worked out, he provoked a cyber attack. So then the next follow-up article here, fascinating topic. Russia is teaching a master class in decision-centric warfare. This is probably one of the most important strategic game theory things I've read in some time. The point being is that Russia sort of manipulates the situation such that they have a bunch of options, and we're kind of stuck going down this path of escalating, pretending as if they're going to invade. That's a good spot for them to be in, and we can expect them to do that more. We want to flip that around where we have all the options and the Russians don't. So, cool stuff. All right. Chinese satellite observed grappling and pulling another satellite out of its orbit. Now check that out. We talked about directed energy weapons. We've talked about ASAT, anti-satellite attack weapons. These were missiles fired from F-15s. These were lasers. But no, what I did not expect was low Earth orbit wrestling matches. And it seems like that's kind of where we're headed, grappling. You can picture a satellite with a little hook that shoots out, maybe big arms that grab the other satellites. This is a physical interaction with other satellites. Who knew? I had no idea we were headed this way. I started doing some research. Space Command actually mentioned this about a month ago, and I just thought it was a weird thing to say. But after this, I Googled it, and over 10 years ago, there was a PDF, and there's a link here in the article, of command and control of a cluster of satellites. And so some pieces kind of came into alignment with me. My guess is that all this stuff we're seeing about drone swarming in warfare now is downstream from satellite swarming, which has probably been deployed for over a decade. So that means that we're doing some really wild stuff that nobody has been talking about in space. And I wonder how we're getting away with not being observed. Look for more swarming stories, satellites. going to be really cool to watch this play out. You know, there was a story last week that they demoed one person controlling hundreds of drones in a combat situation. And I backed off on publishing it because we've done a lot of drones and there's a lot of hype here. You know, but we could be entering the phase of where you could put, this is like Ender's Game territory. You put on a headset, you control hundreds of little spacecraft in low Earth orbit, swarming and overcoming other spacecraft. That would be pretty cool. It would be almost as cool as a lunar motocross on the moon. We're almost done. The Navy's new train car. Come on. So I saw this and I'm like, what? Yes, it's true. The U.S. Navy has built a railroad car. They've actually built several railroad cars. You may say, hey, train don't go on the ocean. And I am assured that that is actually the case. But what they've done is they built this railroad car to haul nuclear stuff around. So there's like I don't know, it's like a Mad Max kind of deal. You've got some diagrams. They've got some pictures. So the Navy is building these combat stealth attack train cars to move their stuff around. That's wild. Who knew? I didn't expect that. If you've ever been into Arizona, there is a huge naval base in the middle of the desert where they keep a lot of their weapons. So I guess they'll use these little train cars to drive their stuff around in the desert. I don't know if you guys remember, there's an old show called The Wild Wild West in the 70s with Robert Conrad, where they lived in a train and they had all these secret James Bond things. May not be as fake as we were expecting. This looks like this is called a rail escort vehicle, and it looks sort of like a blue caboose. The Navy has more than 100 nuclear reactors. I mean, this stuff has to move around somehow or another. Dag, what is that? A naval spent fuel shipping container. Wow, that looks pretty serious. So there's a whole bunch of really cool stats on how they move stuff, what the parameters are. Yeah, if you're interested in really cool, obscure tech stuff, this would be the thing to check out. I think we get one more. There was an article about the Havana Syndrome, which was basically just sort of a hit job on people who thought the Havana Syndrome, this was the New Republic. We've been talking about that for the past year. Havana Syndrome is something is weird happening in U.S. embassies around the world. We don't know what. We first said it was nothing. Then the CIA said, well, we think it's something. And then there was a statement this past week from the CIA that said, no, we don't think we're being physically attacked by other countries. So this author is saying, well, it's all a bunch of hooey. This story is interesting to me because it's been overstated consistently back and forth. There's probably something here, even if it's just mass hysteria, that deserves investigation. Yeah. So this next one, this has got to be the wildest thing I have seen. And if you're not familiar with the history of the Tsar Bomba, the Soviet Union in 1962 decided they were going to detonate, it was 100 megaton nuclear weapon. This would have been incredibly large. There's stats on this. It would said, I think they said for the 100 megaton, if they detonated it 200 miles over land, it would set on fire an area the size of France. It's just your brain. It literally blows a hole in the atmosphere. So there's no more atmosphere underneath it. I don't know how you process this, how it's going to happen. Matter of fact, the scientists putting this together really could not mathematically estimate what would happen because it's just who's ever blown a hole in the atmosphere before. So they were going to do a 100 megaton bomb. They only did a 50 megaton bomb, and it made such a huge explosion. It was part of a big push. Here's a picture of the thing going up. It was, wow. Emperor bomb. What was it? The fireball expanded the flash of the nuclear bomb. The flash alone lasted more than a minute. I mean, the fireball expanded nearly 6 miles in diameter. That's not the explosion. That is the gaseous heat of the initial blast. large enough to include the entire urban core of Washington or San Francisco. In other words, it would just make it go away. It would not exist anymore. Over several minutes, it rose and mushroomed into a massive cloud. Within 10 minutes, the cloud had reached a height of 42 miles and a diameter of 60 miles. Somebody said it was as if the Earth was killed. Yeah, that's wow. So, reading this, I'm going, wow, yeah, it's really bad. I'm glad we don't test things that big. I'm glad that we're not using things that big in our arsenal. This is really an awful thing. And I got down to Teller. And if you haven't followed Teller, back in the 40s, Edward Teller was a big guy in the nuke program, the Manhattan Project. He was also quite a sort of a war hawk. He said, well, you guys want to talk about 100 megatons. I got one, it'll beat you for that. I got one that's even better. And his idea was a gigaton nuclear weapon. And he wouldn't stop there. He would take the gigaton nuclear weapon and use it to detonate a 10 gigaton nuclear weapon. I think that something that large, I'm thinking would vaporize, maybe something complete, not set on fire, but vaporize like an area the size of France. So it would almost be like an instantaneous super meteor impact. It reminds me of sort of the extinction level events that took out the dinosaurs. I don't even know how that would work. At 10 gigatons, you could probably go down as far as you wanted to and blow an even deeper hole in the mantle. Amazing numbers that just don't even make sense to me. All right. So that's our thing for this week. Greg came by. I hope he's going to come by again. If Greg comes back and he has his stuff ready, we will do a quick video on. We have a contest coming up, and I think it's really cool. Do my goodbye thing here. You have not wasted an hour. Congratulations. You've saved time this week by only wasting 37 minutes with Nerd Roundup. We're really happy to have you. I'm Daniel Markham. I will see you on the internet.